Hi everybody, thanks for tuning in. In this video I'm going to try to show how to set up our camera from beginning to end. We're shooting ultra super macro at the Blue Heron Bridge, and I'm going to be using a Nikon D7100 and an Ikelite housing. I'm going to have a 60mm macro lens with a 1.4x teleconverter between the lens and the camera body. Then I'm going to have a flat port and put a +10 subsea diopter wet lens, which is detachable over the flat port. And I'm going to be using one Ikelite strobe. So thanks for tuning in. Let's check it out. Okay, first let's just go over some of the settings on the camera itself. I'm not going to go over everything, just some of the important ones. This is my Nikon D7100 camera. I've got a 60mm macro lens attached to it. Of course, it's on auto focus, not manual focus. And I have it on manual here. I will adjust the shutter speed and aperture myself. And now we can see that it's set at f22, a pretty small aperture since our depth of field is so small for super macro or ultra super macro, although sometimes I still will open the aperture to sculpt my image and get even less depth of field. I have my shutter speed pretty fast, 1 to 1/160th of a second. It's still slow enough to sync with the strobe, however. And here we can see the battery is fully charged and in the camera. This confirms I have my memory card in and it's empty. I have 1.3 thousand images I could get on my memory card, and I'm only shooting JPEGs for this dive, large files and fine, auto white balance, and I'm on autofocus continuous, and I'm focusing on a small spot. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to depress the shutter halfway, and then with my other finger lock the focus, and now the focus is locked, and I can take my hand off here and rock back and forth ever so slightly to determine my exact plane of focus, since our depth of field is so small with super macro. And the only other thing is I have my ISO is the lowest that will go on ISO 100. So let's now look at setting up our camera inside the housing and the strobe. Okay, now let's put the camera body, the Nikon D7100 camera body, into the Ikelite housing. I'm going to secure the base through this screw here and tighten it with my finger and thumb. That's pretty tight. I'm going to put the hot shoe, engage this so that the strobe will fire. That clicks into position. I've already inspected the O-ring and the inside edges of the housing for any dirt or debris. I'm going to place the O-ring on here along the edge, and then I'm going to put this right in here like this. Make sure that O-ring is on, and I'm going to pop this right in. Okay, snap the latches in and inspect that O-ring to make sure for 360 degrees I can see that O-ring through the clear acrylic housing. And now I've got the camera in the Ikelite housing, my desiccant's in the housing, and now in the next we're going to put the lenses and the port onto the outside of the housing. Okay, now I'm going to take my 1.4x teleconverter, take the protector off here, and I'm going to place the teleconverter and snap it in just like I would normally snap my 60mm macro lens, and this is going to give 1.4x additional magnification. I've got that in there, and now I'm going to take my 60mm macro lens. It's on autofocus and full extension here with regard to the focus, and I'm going to snap that onto the 1.4x teleconverter just like I normally would onto the camera body. Alright, now I'm going to, again, make sure my O-ring, I've already lubricated it and inspected it. I'm going to put the flat port onto the camera housing and make sure all the latches are going to be back as I put it on. Put it on like this and snap the latches into place. Okay, now I've got the camera body in with the hot shoe attached, the 1.4x millimeter teleconverter, the 60mm macro lens. I've got a flat port, which is a little longer than I usually use for my 60mm. I usually use this for my 105mm macro lens because the teleconverter makes the lens a little bit longer. But I'm not quite done. I have to be able to shoot ultra super macro, so I'm going to take my +10 subsea diopter wet lens and secure this in here on this hinge here. I'm going to get this in there. Okay, and now I'm going to put the end of this onto the flat port, and now that is secure. It's not going anywhere. And now I'm going to be diving like this, already shooting super macro with my 1.4x teleconverter and my 60mm macro lens. I've maintained a similar working distance because the teleconverter does not reduce the working distance, although we do have to use a little more strobe power. I'll be able to shoot super macro with that. And now if a subject will allow, I can then flip up my +10 diopter and get what I call ultra super macro. So now I've got the camera in the housing, the teleconverter, the macro lens, the subsea diopter wet lens, and now I'm going to put the strobe on and the focus light, and we're almost done. Finally, we're going to connect the strobe. I've got the camera in the housing, the teleconverter, the macro lens, the flat port, and then the subsea diopter detachable wet lens. I've got everything set up. The camera's attached to the hot shoe there. But now, let's get the strobe set up. So very important, we have to make sure our O-ring is intact inside the Ikelite strobe. I flooded more than one strobe from inadvertently having the O-ring fall out. Very, very bad. Now I'm going to put this in here, put the little test on here. The strobe's intact, it's fully charged, okay? I like to put a diffuser over the strobe. It softens the cone of light, especially when I'm shooting with a single strobe. It broadens the cone of light a little bit, makes the light a little bit less harsh too, although you lose a little bit of power. Now I'm going to attach the strobe here with electronically to the camera housing. So I'm going to engage this. So I'm going to put this right in here and attach this one here. I'm sorry that this takes a little bit of time. Hopefully you don't find it too boring. I'm just demonstrating the thing I have to go through every time when I'm setting this up. And then I'm going to attach this right in here like that. Okay, we'll screw that in. So now the hot shoe is attached to the camera here, and now I've got the camera electronically hardwired to the strobe. Now we have to attach the strobe to the body of the house, to the actual housing, and I put some of these together. These are ultraviolet Ikelite arms. I'm going to put that right in here. Okay, and then I'm going to secure this end right here like so. I put a couple of them together on my own so as not to make this too long and tedious. And now we have this attached here. Now I've got the strobe attached. We like to check the strobe. I always check it before the dive too. But let's just turn this on, give it a second to warm up. We'll just set it down like that. And I'm going to remove this, turn my camera on, and let's just make sure the strobe goes off. I'll look through my angled viewfinder here and focus on something. And the strobe went off, and I have a good histogram. So the TTL is working. I have the strobe set on TTL here. You can do manual exposure as well. But if you do manual exposure, then you want to put this on the housing. Instead of TTL, you turn this down to the manual. All right. Now there's one more thing to do before we're quite done. I like to use a focus light. It helps, if you know, getting good focus is so hard with ultra super macro for two reasons. The subject might move, we might move, and the depth of field is minuscule. That's why we use a smaller aperture in general. So we're going to put this focus light on to help us see and focus on our subject. So this is a light and motion focus light. You can use any of them. I'm just going to get this secured. And now I'll be able to, we can use a white light or a red light. And let's just get this on here. That's red, that's white, and we'll turn that off for now. And now we have a focus light to use. So we are all set up, all ready to go. And before we actually do the dive, I will immerse this camera in some water to make sure it doesn't flood. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you found this helpful.